Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Board Games Hitting My Table. This is where I talk about all of the games that I've played over the last couple of weeks. This episode covering the first half of February 2025, and I've played some great Euros and some other bits and bobs too. But before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, Kienda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's start with Ultimate Railroads. So it's been a while since I played this one, and last time I played it, before this time, I played with the American Railroads boards. So I thought, let's do that again. And I really like that that version of the game where you can actually tailor make your own little player boards so that you get your own stops and get them in a different order, comparing to the other players. Now, this is such a wonderful game. I suppose when you look at it at face value, you might think it's a really train-orientated game, but it's not really. It's a bit of an engine builder, with a really unique way of scoring points as you're climbing up these tracks, and they'll kind of generate you ticking points at the end of each round. And the kind of ramping up effect in this game is pretty amazing, as you start off getting a few points here and there, but by the last round you're generating over 100 points per turn, which is quite cool. We all took a very different strategy. We did play this at 3 players. I kind of focused mainly on the little things you can tuck under your player board, where you're getting the trains and you are generating points that way. And I also had a really good technology upgrade where I got it down really early, so I was getting like a 20-point jump every single round, earlier than my opponents were. But one of my opponents did a really good job of getting their gold railway track really high, and I've never seen it done that well before. But I think my engine was just a little bit too strong, and I got it started a little bit too early for them to make up the ground. But if it went another round, then I'm sure I would have lost. But really love this game. Again, the only problem I have, and I do mention this each time I play it, is that if somebody has a really good start, it's very difficult for the other players to catch up, and that's pretty much what happened again. So that is Ultimate Railroads, the American Railroads edition. I also played a 3-player game of Vikings, one of my favourite Michael Kiesling games, if not my favourite. This is a fantastic little tile placement game as you're building up these little peninsulas, these little islands, and placing these Vikings on them. And all the Vikings have different effects, such as fighting off these ships, generating you points, generating you money, and so on. Now, my strategy with this game paid off massively because I managed to get a huge monopoly on the money-generating Vikings. So I was having a ton of income each round, whereas my opponents didn't really have that, so they didn't have the infrastructure to get the other tiles they wanted. But while doing that, I did kind of fall behind on these blue Vikings that help you feed the other Vikings you've collected, and you can lose quite a lot of points at the end of the game if you ignore that entirely. But I managed to just snatch a few before the end of the game there. Apologies for the siren in the background. But yeah, this is such a wonderful family weight style game. I love the tile placement with the drafting system kind of combining with each other, and it's just brilliant. So that is Vikings. Played a 3-player game of Pergamon. Another game that's been sat on my shelf for a little while. I do kind of praise this one quite a lot because I love this money gaining system where you'll have this random orientation of cards which will show the potential of money that you can get each round. But you can kind of go early on this track and guarantee yourself a small amount of money, or you can go later and get more money if there's any money remaining on those cards. So it's got this kind of little pushy luck mechanism there. I think I managed to place my workers just about right and not get ripped off or not shortchange myself when placing my little worker. But it's basically a set collection game. You're collecting these little tiles and trying to line them up. You can see that they all have different little symbols on them and they'll fit in certain ways. But if you have too many, then you have to pay storage fees, which can actually really hit you quite hard, because money is pretty tight in this game. But I think I managed to sit back on my money at the right times. I think it's not always worth spending your money. Sometimes it's worth just sitting back and waiting for the tiles to build back up until you can get exactly what you want. Put those big exhibits down and get points that way, and that managed to pay off. But great fun. That is Pergamon. I played a 2-player game of Troyes. So one of the first Euros I ever picked up, and this game is still absolutely excellent. And I have to say, after playing this most recent game, I think it climbed my rankings quite a lot actually. So it's already featured on my top 100 this year. But I think next year it could be a climber. This is such a versatile game, lots of different cards, so each game feels very different. But it's essentially a dice kind of manipulation and placement game. But you can buy dice off other people, so like the dice you roll aren't necessarily yours because you can have them bought from you without your consent. And you're basically trying to build an engine of these different kind of different regions. You've got like the white region, the red military region, and the yellow like merchant region. And they all kind of synergize with each other, and you're trying to convert things into points. Now, I managed to build quite a nice little engine of converting dice to money in a really nice way, an efficient way, and then money into points in a nice way. So I think that managed to get me a bit of a boost on my opponent. And I also managed to score quite well off their personal objective, because unlike a lot of games, this one, when you're given like mission cards at the start of the game that are hidden from the other players, they don't just score for you, they also score for the other players. So if they can kind of figure out what you're going for, they can piggyback off your efforts. So that is Trois. Loved getting this one back. It's such a great game. So yeah, nice to play that one again with the Ladies of Trois expansion. Speaking of great games, we played a 4-player game of In the Year of the Dragon, and this is the first time I've played this game at 4, I believe, and I absolutely loved it at 4 players. Now, this is a tight game as it is, but at 4 players it was that much tighter. If you're not aware of this Stefan Feld game, it's quite a punishing game. In fact, it's an extremely punishing game, as you're trying to weather the storm, going through all of these horrible disasters that strike each round, and you've got to have the right characters in your little tableau to overcome those disasters. Now, I didn't actually lose too many people throughout the whole game. I think I managed to have the right people in the right place, so I wasn't getting casualties. But my money building engine wasn't too great, so whenever there was any kind of downtime to get a point here or there, I wasn't really capitalising on that, and my money engine wasn't too great either. So yeah, so I did okay, but some of my opponents just did a lot better than I did. But love this at 4. It's just a great, fun experience, and again, unlike anything else, especially if you're into Stefan Feld games. This is like the complete opposite of a point salad. So that is In the Year of the Dragon, and another Feld game that I played after a long time being sat on my shelf. This is Aquasphere. So only played a 2-player game of Aquasphere. I managed to try and get some really cool technology cards early to give me nice little boosts here and there. But my opponent did very well. I couldn't manage to catch up with them, as they were collecting a lot more of these little base tiles and getting set collection bonuses that way. I think they were killing more octopods than I was as well. But still, this is such a great little programming game. I love the scoring system, where to get past certain checkpoints you need to have these gems, and if you don't have the gems you're just kind of stuck and locked there. I love that. I've not really seen that used before, and it's a really nice little quirk in this game that I enjoy. And the area control stuff, I think, is what hit me hardest, especially for the first couple of rounds. I wasn't really competing, and then after I kind of cottoned on that I was losing a lot of points that way, I tried to focus on that more, but it wasn't quite enough to make up that early lost ground. But Aquasphere, brilliant Feld, criminally underrated, and great game. A couple more smaller games now then. So I played a 2-player game of Acropolis. Covered this one to death on the channel. One of my favourite tile placement games, is you're building not only wide but also tall, and scoring points based on these multipliers. Great family weight style game with some good depth. And another tile placement game we've played that I've covered recently on the channel actually is Junk Draw. This is a pleasant little polyomino style game, as you're filling up these 4 different drawers of these polyomino tiles with this bingo style system, as you're drawing a tile each round, placing it in one of your drawers, but you can't go to the same drawer again until you fill the other ones up, or for that round that is. And then you'll have a different scoring condition each round. And for example, in the examples here it says, don't cover interior spaces, so you want your middle spaces free, or don't cover many spaces, so you want to have as many empty spaces as you can, or touching tiles, all the different things you'd expect with a polyomino game. Again, I like it. It's lightning fast, if not a little bit too fast. The decisions are a little bit obvious, but it's it's good, it's fun. That is Junk Draw. And the final game we played, of my own collection anyway, is Forks. So we played a 4-player game of this little kind of commodity speculation game. as you are drafting these cards in a closed draft system, playing them in front of you, but then the remaining card you don't draft will go into the center, which will manipulate the market and the strengths of the other suits that you're collecting. And you want to be basically collect suits of the most powerful suits in the market. But of course, as the more powerful cards form in the market, then you want to draft them for yourself, which will obviously make them weaker in later rounds because they're not getting boosted anymore. So there's a lot of luck in this game. It's quite swingy, and it'll generally follow a certain pattern, but it's so quick and inoffensive that it's quite pleasant to play. And the scores are pretty a wide variety. You know, some people will score huge negative points and some people will score massive positive points, but again, it's so fast that it doesn't really matter, and it's quite a nice clean game. So that is Forks. Another few games that I played of my friends are Ethnos. So we played a 3-player game of the original Ethnos. I've not played any of the new versions, but I like the old version. It's got a really nice flow to the game, a nice clean design by Paolo Mori. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think it's maybe the game is, if anything, it has a little bit of an abrupt ending, but I do like the way it works. It's a really nice little area control, little hand management game. Also played Crown of Emara, so it's been a long time since I played Crown of Emara. We played a 3-player game of that one, and it's really enjoyable, actually. I like this little dual rondel system. One for the resources, one to cash in the resources. I think it's maybe a little bit forgiving, and you can just kind of just do things and it will work out. But I do like that kind of Tigris and Euphrates scoring system where you have 2 scoring markers or 2 scoring categories, and your lowest of the 2 is your final score. I wish I kind of went for more of the player powers, because I think they seem to make the game a little bit more interesting, but that's a strategy that I kind of ignored. But still, it was a good game, but I do question the replayability, which is why I originally got rid of the game. And the final game we played was 5 Towers. So I used to have 5 Towers myself. This is actually the copy I gifted to my friend. It was nice to get this little bidding game back to the table. Try to bid on these cards and build these towers. This is actually a bit of a weird game because we scored a 3-way tie, which is quite unheard of, really. So yeah, all scored exactly the same points. Again, I like how simple this game is because you're not actually bidding currency, you're just bidding how many cards you can take. But I feel like turn order is a little bit too important in this game, because if it's your turn, the perfect cards come out, you just bid a high number and then nobody can outbid you. So it's kind of a bit rigid in that respect, and the game almost plays itself in what you can take. But still, I don't want to be overly critical because it is a good game and it's fun. So that is 5 Towers. So that's it. That's all of the games that I have played. So again, mainly trying to focus on my Euros in my collection that I've not played in some time, getting them back to the table before all the 2025 games start coming in. So lovely to get games like Aquasphere, In the Year of the Dragon, Troyes, Pergamon, Vikings, Ultimate Railroads, just the real staple great Euros out there. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos too. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.